What is up, everybody? My name is LEG and welcome to yet again another Rick and Morty video, one that we have not made in a long time, but I've been wanting to do one of these for quite some time. We're going to be doing our Rick and Morty Season 3 Episode 2 review in this video, and we're going to be talking about Episode 2. To be honest, I don't really have any specific gripes with this episode. It was overall a pretty solid episode of Rick and Morty, made me laugh, also had me thinking about story development and character development, and has me thinking about future episodes in terms of the quote-unquote Rick and Morty lore. So I'm going to be talking about all of that, and we're going to be discussing it with you guys in this video. So to start from the very beginning, Rick and Morty Season 3 Episode 1 aired on April 1st this year, and July 30th, which is today, or when Rick and Morty Season 3 Episode 2 aired, was just now. It's about 10 minutes after that. It's currently 12:11 a.m. on August 1st? Is it August 1st? Excusez-moi. Yes, it is. And July 31st, excuse me, I'm stupid. But regardless of that, that was the episode of Rick and Morty Season 3 Episode 2, and boy, it was solid. Basically, the entire rundown of this episode was, it's approximately a couple months of time has been since Season 3 Episode 1, in my opinion, and in that couple months of time, Summer, Morty, and Rick have been going on multiple adventures in that time, and during that time, Beth and Jerry are trying to get their divorce worked out, and this episode we actually see Jerry leaving the house. It shows Jerry about to leave the house, and Rick and Morty and Summer are about to go on another adventure, and this adventure is actually the Mad Max parody episode adventure. The Mad Max parody episode, which they did tease a lot, and they did actually confirm that this was going to be the episode on YouTube. So for those of you that are like really into Rick and Morty, you probably knew that this was going to be that episode. But in the trailer, all that like Mad Max stuff that we saw them riding in like deserts and stuff, this was that episode. So that was a very cool thing to finally see in fruition, and it actually had a lot of development towards it, and I really liked the character design. The character design was hilarious. They had like tubes connecting from people's faces to their crotches and a lot of BDSM gear and stuff, and it was really, you know, it was really funny. I do feel like it was the Rick and Morty spin on the Mad Max universe that I really appreciated, and I love how they played on the fact where the guy was referencing you know, the big phenomenon that ruined their world and made it the desert land waste that it was. He was like, oh, the boom boom messed up our world, and then this and that happened. The fact that he referenced the giant thing that like destroyed their world and he called it the boom boom, I don't know why, but I just found that funny in general. But overall, basically what this episode was about, Rick and Morty are trying to go to this Mad Max-esque, Rick, Morty, and Summer, excuse me, are in this Mad Max-esque world, and they see, and Rick sees this, you know, like really rare crystal or whatever that can, you know, power stuff very easily, and it's a really useful tool for his inventions and stuff, and he tries to steal it, and during that, you know, Summer goes off and does her own thing, and then Morty gets upset at Rick because Summer goes off and Rick's not really caring, and he kind of is only giving a crap about himself, and then Morty gets this arm that has like PTSD or something, and it has its own memory of its own, but basically by the end of the episode, Rick and Morty kind of go through the entire circulation that they've already gone through. Rick stays in that area for about 3 weeks because he does not want to go back to Beth, and while he's in that area for 3 weeks, he ultimately becomes exactly what he was, chilling in a house, sitting and watching TV while, you know, the two people that own the house, which were Summer and her boyfriend at the time, argue, and they were ultimately in the exact same situation as if they were home. So that I found that very funny. I really did. But when they went back home, that was basically the end of the episode, and then Summer gave the thing to Jerry, and then Morty realized that he was all Gucci, and yada yada yada. But I do have specific things that I do want to talk about in this episode, so I'm going to run down my list of notes that I was taking during the episode. So in the very beginning of the episode, a voice whispers to Jerry, "You're a loser." And I was like, is it a real voice? I don't think it's a real voice now, because at the end of the episode, after the credits, you hear it again, and it goes, "Loser." I really doubt it's a real voice, because I thought it was a thing in the beginning. I don't know if it is still a thing, but I just would like to reference that, because that was something that I did feel as if was somewhat important, but it might have just been a joke in the show. I don't think it was that big of a deal. And then, you know, I said the episode was an obvious Mad Max parody, and it was a really good one. I did like the Mad Max BDSM-esque character designs. They were amazing. They were extremely amazing. I liked that very much. They refer to the desecration of their world as the boom boom. I already mentioned that, and I already mentioned how funny I found that. Morty is still upset at Rick about not caring for anyone else, being his complaining about Rick not wanting to save Summer. Yes, that's something I really wanted to like shine upon, because you know, in the like episode right before this, Rick and Morty season 3 episode 1, Morty clearly states that like he kind of has come to fruition to realize that Rick doesn't really care about anyone else. He doesn't even care about himself, really. He just does whatever he wants, and he just does whatever he wants without thinking about others, or without really even thinking about his own safety. He just kind of goes with it. He just kind of goes with the flow, and that ultimately is destructive against his family. So that's why Morty's trying to tell Summer, like, don't rely on Rick so much. And as they're going on this adventure, you know, you saw in the beginning of the episode, Summer was hella enthusiastic to go. She's like, oh yeah, Grandpa Rick, let's go. And Morty's like, all right, I'll go. So it was one of those things. And then in the episode, Morty's like, why, you know, you don't care about Summer, she might die out there, and yada yada yada. So, you know, Morty was still feeling that during the episode. I mean, near the end, I feel like he kinda didn't care about it too much, because I feel like this episode was that episode to kind of put Morty back into his place. You know, Morty was kind of doubting Rick at first, and now with this episode, I really feel like you know, Morty's little relationship with that like arm that had memories or whatever. I feel like his relationship with that arm kind of told him that, you know what, he's just got to deal with everything that's happening. You can't blame everything on Rick. Things are just the way it is. I don't know if you guys agree with that. You can tell me in the comments down below if you do or not, but that's at least how I see it. That's at least how I see it. And then continuing on in my notes, I also see Morty was taking out most of his anger in the blood dome along with his arm, until both the arm and Morty decided to deal with their problems. Yeah, that's what I really liked about this episode. There was a lot of development in Morty, when at the same time it wasn't focusing too much on Morty, you know? Like, it was there was some on Summer, there was some on Rick, but I feel like in terms of character development, the main person to actually develop in character this episode was Morty, and I was really glad to see that, because, you know, ever since the season 3 episode 1 premiere, you know, Morty actually, let's not forget guys, Morty tried to kill Rick. He actually shot Rick in the head, and it was just like a mistake or whatever, or like he didn't even know that he was supposed to shoot Rick, and he didn't know that the gun was on stun. But remember, he tried to kill Rick earlier, so my man Morty, he wasn't exactly in the right state of mind, but I feel like this episode was the episode to get him back into shape mentally. So I'm really glad that Morty's finally not being a bitch anymore. But then we can see later on that in my notes, I also said Rick tried to run away from his problems and ultimately realized they are inescapable, hence the fact that Summer literally became Beth. Yeah, I found that hilarious, because at the very end of the episode, Rick's like, oh my god, I don't want to go back home, thank you for asking to stay. And then it's like 3 weeks later, and it's literally the exact same thing happening. Summer has become Beth, and, you know, Morty and Rick and Morty are laying on the couch watching TV as usual, and you know, Summer's arguing with the guy. So that's literally the exact same situation they were in before, and finally you know, they kind of understand that they can't really escape from their problems, and they kind of have to face their issues. But one thing I did not write in my notes that I found this was probably the biggest thing I have to say about this episode, okay? Robot Rick, Morty, and Summer. The robot Rick and Mortys, those are going to be an entire episode in themselves. As you saw, the robot Rick and Mortys, as they were playing the dice game with Beth or whatever, as they were playing that dice game with Beth, the Morty was acting resilient. He's like, I love you, Mom, I want to be alive and stuff. As that was happening, I'm telling you, that is going to come back, and that's going to be in this season most likely. And the reason I say that is because in the previews for Rick and Morty season 3, in the main trailer that came out for Rick and Morty season 3, we saw a bunch of clips. A lot of clips from this episode actually, but one of the things that we saw in the clips was a Morty covered in green, like a Morty covered in green goop and a Rick covered in green goop fighting another Rick without anything on him, and then fighting another Morty without anything on him. There was like, we saw that multiple times in the trailer, and we also see a robotic Rick, and we also see a robotic Summer. Now, originally, I thought the robotic Summer might have been, I mean, this still might be the case, but basically what I'm trying to say is Morty, being relentless against like his robot existence, that's going to come back. That's going to happen again, and that's going to be an episode in itself. The Morty and Rick that were covered in green goop are the real Morty, and in that trailer, the ones that aren't covered in goop are the ones that are the robots. So the robot Morty and the robot Rick are going to fight the real Rick and the real Morty. I have many reasons to believe that. I'm not going to go into like a trailer analysis, but understand it. Like I've watched the trailer multiple times, and then there's a scene where in the trailer where like Rick is taking his robot hand and like turning it into a gun or something. So trust me, I believe that's going to happen. That's probably my favorite thing about this episode, the fact that we got a little tease about Robot Morty and Robot Rick, and I finally have an idea about what that episode's going to be. So that's really exciting for me. That's really exciting. And then is there anything else in my notes? I don't really think there is. I also said Jerry is still a little bitch. Yeah, Jerry is still a little bitch. Jerry's still annoying. I do think Jerry will return, though. I do think he will return, because as we saw, Beth was having regrets, and even though Morty kind of reassured her at the end of the episode, I wouldn't be surprised if it was like, by the time season 3 ended, Jerry came back type thing. I wouldn't be surprised at that. But overall, I kind of got all the key points I liked about this episode. I liked the memories with the arm. I liked, Summer's little relationship with the guy and, like, her learning a lesson. I really like that Summer's coming along with these adventures, but at the same time, she is kind of getting a little darker. She's, kind of getting a little more, like, ruthless with it, and she's getting a little way more into it than Morty is, and that might rub Rick off the wrong way in one of these episodes. That might actually deter them from their usual objective when it comes to these missions, and it might actually hurt their, like, dynamic. So we'll see. We'll see how this goes. That's going to have a big play in, Summer acting like, hella dark and stuff. That's going to have a bigger play when it comes to the future of season 3 of Rick and Morty. But overall, I enjoyed this episode a great deal. It wasn't too big, it wasn't too small, but it was a very solid progressing episode with character development and comedy and good animation overall. I like this episode a lot, and I'm going to give this episode a solid 8.2 from your boy Ali G. Now tell me in the comments down below what you thought about this episode of Rick and Morty Season 3. Please tell me in the comments down below, and if you enjoyed my review on it, please click that like button down below, and if you want to see more Rick and Morty reviews on the channel, don't forget to click that subscribe button down below as well. My name is Ali G, and I cannot wait to see you guys for the next episode of Rick and Morty. Deuces!